Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic show on Friday, the 22nd of March, 2019. And as always, a warm welcome to Stop Spamming and Thunderous. How are you guys doing?
Hello, 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 hello.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the show.
Yes, indeed. Well, since the last show, there's been, obviously, we had the awful terrorist attack down in New Zealand, killing, I think, around 49 people. And we've also had a smaller version of that in the Netherlands, I think it was, since the last show. So, again, condolences go out to anybody who lost their life with that as well. So, with that said, we don't have any crazy comments tonight, but so before we get started, do you guys want to sort of say anything before we get into it? We're looking to sort of move through these. Now, obviously, we're going to chat about every verse that we think is relevant as we go through it here. And by the way, if you are a Muslim and you're watching and you want to join us, then please let me know in the chat. I'll need you to friend me on Facebook, and then I can send you a link to join us. We would indeed like to have one at least, or more Muslims joining us. People that are either new or that we're still happy to have on. Obviously, there's certain Muslims that we've felt hasn't progressed the conversation productively. So we're looking for either new people or people that we've had before that we're interested in having on again. So if that's you and you're listening, then please let us know.
Can I just do the introduction?
Yes, please.
Because for somewhat, I still think it's important that we state in the beginning who and what we are, so that if anybody comes across the videos, that they are not shocked that we are talking about Islam, that we are still in a position to be talking about Islam as such, and what we are not talking about, because I think it's getting more and more important, since any time that you are mentioning the word Islam, the next word is always racist and Nazi and Islamophobe and all these other things. And it's absolutely amazing what has happened over the last, 5 or 6 years. I can't believe it. That's why you have to really pussyfoot around now and you know, always dequalify and or qualify your statements. It's crazy. So the Gin and Tonic show, okay? Gin as in this what is it? Invented, mysterious, ghostish creature made from fire, from smokeless fire. That's us, and our intention, and always has been, about bringing facts. Okay, facts, not just opinions, but facts, to address an ideology, to confront Islam with reality, and to then engage in a dialogue to discuss differences in beliefs. Now we react to claims, and we do not attack. We don't attack individual Muslims or Muslims in general. I mean, sure, we criticize the claims around bad ideas, and we expose those who lie and deceive, and those who are willfully ignorant. And at the same time, we try and educate those who have never had the benefit of a scientific education, yet confront us with false claims based within science. Now, instead of being strictly divisive, and this is why I'm always starting off the show with a positive message from the Hadith, all right, from the Islamic text, the secondary text, we always bring something positive. So and I try and build bridges, because I think there is common ground, and we should go and we should celebrate that, and we should focus on what we have in common instead of what divides us. And okay, I often fail, especially me, when I get a little bit, emotional. I get very frustrated with people who try and lie to me. I get very frustrated by people who try and deceive me. So yes, but then I'm a human being. I'm a person. And that is, yes, I admit to that. So instead of always applying logic and reasoning and rational thinking, I am sometimes getting frustrated and emotional. And then I sound strident and harsh. But rest assured, that's not what we want. And we look forward to good arguments. And who knows, maybe someone can bring up a convincing good reason to believe that there's this powerful supernatural entity somewhere out there. I mean, I must admit, I strongly doubt it. So we address Islam, we critique, we use facts, reality, reasoning. We condemn categorically any abuse, oppression, slavery, violence, sexual it doesn't matter what. Now, my standard question is to a Muslim: can you condemn categorically every human being, every man who has any kind or performs any kind of sexual act with a 9-year-old girl? And a lot of Muslims are unable to do that. Now, we do categorically, without any kind of restriction. And if you can too, I have no objection to you joining me anywhere and everywhere. It doesn't matter. But if you can't, then I don't think we have a common place somewhere on this planet. So we try and be decent, okay? So if you want to comment, if you want to question, correct, or you're simply curious about anything Islam, you've come to the right place. So at the moment, we're still using Google Hangouts, and we're going to move. But at the moment, we're still using that because 3 things are important here, okay? Live interaction with viewers, possibility to invite and host people on the panel, and then have an unedited archive on YouTube. And those are the things that I specifically value with the Hangout system. Okay, having said that, let's go to the quick positive, which is in Sahih Bukhari. And I had to go all the way to volume 1, book 3, number 94. Whenever the Prophet asked permission to enter, he knocked the door thrice with greeting. And whenever he spoke a sentence, he used to repeat it thrice. So now we know where Sheldon Cooper gets it from the Hadith.
There we go. Great stuff. Thank you for that indeed.
Oh, one thing I still want to do. I want to voice my disgust. I want to voice my disgust at what the Prime Minister of New Zealand did. That she thought that she is showing solidarity with people by wearing a hijab. Now that to me is so bad. That to me is so thoughtless, so mindless, so terribly ignorant. It reminds me of hectic activism or something, just trying to do something. Well, we need to do something to show that we are disgusted. But you don't go and wear something that is a sign of oppression to 50% of the human population within Islamic countries. You can't do that. You can't have women fighting this, and then you, as a prime minister, you go out and wear this symbol for female oppression. I mean, if a Christian gets killed, are you going to walk around in a chastity belt or something? No, you don't. So why would you go and do that? It's thoughtless. I can't understand why a woman can do that, really. I don't know. So I just want to voice my disgust at this because I think it's terrible.
I think the reason that somebody would do that is to try and show solidarity. But as you say, in many countries, this is seen and is oppressive to women. And those women that have come out, those ex-Muslim women will tell you this. But when you're a, quote unquote, a privileged woman in the West and you're trying to show solidarity, it's kind of like a virtual city, right? I understand your pain, but you don't need to wear something, right? You can say it to people directly. Like you say, I mean, if it was Sikhs, is she going to, don a turban or whatever, whatever the particular person is, well, let's see if anything like that happens, right? So now once you set a standard like this, you're going to be inconsistent if you don't do it, if it's some other group that, incurs some sort of unpleasantness, right?
So, yeah. Okay, my old videos are all over the show. I mean, all the channels. I started recreating everything because I got shut down so many times.
I've still got the link that you've given me, so let me post this. So for those who are interested, there are tons and tons. I mean, presumably we can share the stops, right? We've got an archive of them here. It looks like
there's 2 archives. One is the old Stop Spamming archive, where I've just about put all the old videos, and the Jinn&Tonic archive.
So there I've posted the Jinn&Tonic archive. These are before I joined the show many years. You'll see how mature and well involved Stops has been for many years. You can see these go back to 2011. I don't know if you started all the way back there, Stops, but if you probably did, I guess, or close to it. So we're going on 8 years. I mean, you're a veteran. If I guess you'd be like, if you were in the army, you'd be like the chief of staff, in the American army. The rest of us would be, somewhere still, on the front lines, and you'd be in the Pentagon, so to speak. So there we go.
Pentagon, definitely.
But just another point here. Somebody, sorry, Sanders.
That's where the most belligerent people hang out. So that's definitely where.
That's probably a good place for stops. Yeah. I mean, you
what happens when this prime minister? What happens if a nudist gets killed?
Well, exactly. Yes. So you're going to show solidarity. Walk around in a bikini?
I think that this discussion about when something happens to the Islamic world by way of terrorism or something, this solidarity could be a show in itself.
Yes. Yeah. I think so.
Anyway, I just feel discontent. Okay.
I think that what you're saying there, Stops, is very much a feeling, disposition, and certainly a voice in the mind of many people, not just listening to the show, but around the world when they watch this almost fear that politicians and such present to the world when they are deliberately, of all the religions that exist, to show the youngest religion this kind of homage, if you like.
Yeah, but it's appeasement.
Yes, it's a homage, but it's also, in my opinion, not wanting to labour the point, but it's also a type of fear.
Yeah, I agree. Huh?
The difficulty with fear is when you fear something, you give power to that thing.
Yes.
And when you give power to that thing, it emboldens them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing across the world. We're seeing many people. I remember Barack Obama bowing down to the king of Saudi Arabia, and the many Muslims that are praising the fact that Barack Obama did that. But the point being, it emboldens the Muslim world, and by emboldening them, you're empowering them. You're almost giving a tacit recognition that that Islam in some way carries weight and truth. And that's the difficulty, but the greater public, the court of public opinion, so to speak, we're not fools to that. And I think there's an undercurrent of reaction that's yet to manifest itself with in recognition of politicians that do this.
Yeah, I think you can show solidarity, and you can, as you say, how can you say, extend a hand without having to, in a sense, virtue signal, because you do then set the standard to do that in the future.
What does a politician do when a Muslim? We have Muslim atrocities committed every day, every week, every month, every year to the thousands. The politicians don't seem to be wanting to be wearing any manifestation of Islamic culture when it's Muslim on Muslim violence. We don't see any manifestation of solidarity when it's Muslim on non-Muslim violence, and that could be to the tune of hundreds, if not thousands, in any one year anyway. There's no solidarity with Sikhs. You don't see them waving around the Guru Granth Sahib. There's no manifestation of solidarity with Hindus, with reference to the Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, India over Kashmir wars. There's no solidarity with Jews that are murdered by Muslims. And when atheists are victimized or killed by Muslims, you don't see politicians, rolling around with Charles Darwin's, the origin of the species, or Francis Galton's eugenics in their hands, waving it about. There's no solidarity there either. So this inconsistency would be something that would be recognized in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, and just we'll go through a few comments, because otherwise we get behind here. Presumably, one of our Muslim viewers is Waris Rafiq, is saying, Jinn&Tonic show, stop spamming. Islam's highest scholar, Sheikh Salhi Al-Fazwan, I'm sure I've pronounced that incorrectly, my apologies, has issued an open challenge to any atheist willing to accept. So far, no one has been brave enough to accept. Well, I'm not by no means... Well, exactly.
Doesn't matter what it is.
I'm by no means a leading atheist of any sort. I'm just some dude, but I will quite happily have that conversation. But
okay, I withdraw.
No. But Stops is certainly better suited to deal with the specifics of the Quran. But again, we can read the verses and so forth, right? But Stops, I think you'll be better suited to that. But I'm quite happy to have a conversation with him as well.
But what is the challenge?
Well, that's what I've asked here. I've said, what challenge is this sheikh making? So the existence of a creator, and Islam as the only true religion which represents the creator.
Oh, I'd love to be involved in that.
You're not allowed to, though, because you already believe in a creator. So
yeah, but he said that Islam truly represents a creator. So from that perspective,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
You
you could
can't
do the
argue with
second
that.
part.
It's unfalsifiable.
You can do part 2. You could do the second part of it. Yeah, we'll do the first part and the second part, and then we'll bring in Thunderous. Or Thunderous can do it. Actually, Thunderous, you go first. You do the second part, and then either Stops or I or both of us can do part 1 and 2 afterwards.
I think they call that killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but then again, actually, it's not open to you because it's an atheist, right? So
Yeah.
he specifically excluded Christians. But I guess you could debate him on whether Christianity is more likely to be true, or Islam, or whatever. Or and here's an open challenge: why doesn't he have a conversation with Christian Prince if he's the top guy? I mean, Christian Prince is pretty knowledgeable in Islam, more so than myself and maybe Stops. So there's an open invitation, and I'm sure he'll treat him, because when scholars have gone on with Christian Prince, he's been quite polite. He's not always that polite with other people. But there's somebody.
You donkey, you potato.
Yes, no, he doesn't say that to sheikhs and to imams that go on, right? So if this fella is the top scholar, apparently,
or equally, the scholar could just get in touch with this show.
Yeah,
well, I did say that.
That's the funny thing. They don't.
Yeah, welcome. He's welcome to join us and educate us here. I mean, he'd have to sing to our level, though. We're just normal people, right? But if he could manage to lift his clothing and
it's representing God, surely you want to show some humility. That's the whole point. When you're representing God, you're supposed to be showing humility.
That's right. True.
But it shows you that even a non-scholar or non-scholars like us, even for us, it is terribly easy to go and refute any claim that Muslims make, or that the Quran makes, or that Islamic texts make, or anything. So a non-scholar, a simple person with a little bit of superficial reading of the Quran can automatically and immediately refute the claims.
Well, you can see that in the manifestation of debates that are taking place around the world now. It's always something about the Muslim will have a debate about any subject, as long as it's not about Islam. It'll be about why, atheism. Let's talk about atheism. Let's talk about the Bible. Let's talk about Judaism. Let's talk about anything, but not the Quran, though. It's the one subject that they don't really want to debate, because for the very reasons of the points that you bring out, the stuff that's contained in the Quran is so now easily refuted. That's why the Muslim scholars for those don't want to go anywhere near it. And also, because if you start arguing, there's something I've come to realize in recent years, that when you start arguing with a Muslim about the information contained in the Quran to a Muslim audience, the problem is with the people in the Muslim audience, there is a fear that if you're arguing about contents of the Quran, you're actually going to make a point, and you're then going to unsettle some people in the audience, because that's the one thing the scholar doesn't want. He doesn't want you bringing an accusation against the Quran for fear it might undermine the faith of somebody in the audience that is a Muslim.
I think that's very much the view, isn't it?
Agreed. While we're talking about the history here of Jinn&Tonic show, Klingshaw, I don't see anything of him anymore. There were times when he was still active. I don't know what he's doing, because I heard that he left Australia, went back, and I don't really know what he's up to at the moment. I've not seen any publication from him. I've not seen anything by him. And he should have finished his studies by now, but I have not seen or heard anything from him. I don't know what's going on with him. It's such a pity. Yeah.
So, but didn't you say he retired, or is he still active then?
No, he retired everything regarding Islam in a, let's say, popular sense. In other words, his Twitter and YouTube, Facebook and things like that. He wanted to be an Islamic scholar. He wanted to go to a different level. But then he got caught up in this communism thing, and I do not know whether he ever went back into studying Islam, or whether he dropped out. I have no idea, because after a while the publication ceased. So I don't know what he did.
Yeah, and so Waris is saying here, the Sheikh fellow's 86-year-old and hard of hearing. The debate will need to be done face to face. No wonder that no atheist has taken it up then. It's very unlikely that an atheist is going to travel to a Muslim majority country and debate the fact that Islam isn't true and God isn't true, right? So, and I'm sure this eye is not going to fly somewhere. And by the way, 86-year-old hard of hearing, I mean, that doesn't sound like, the top scholar to me. Now, maybe he's got stuff in his brain that he knows about Quran, but you know, any point you make, you know, somebody can very easily say, oh, well, you're taking advantage of an old guy that can't hear properly. So presumably there are other people.
That's taken from the Zakir-Naik school of how to put off a debate when you're challenging a debate. You have to go to India and you have to bring something like 10, 15 or 20,000 people with you. You put the odds so out of favor that when you make the statement, I challenge anybody, nobody turns up, to the naive, gullible, stupid audience, to them, they read it as, oh, nobody dare challenge him because he's so powerful, when the reality is everything is stacked against the person that's coming over for the debate, that he's got to go all the way to India and he's got to take 10,000 people with him. Have a word, mate.
Yeah, of course, it makes it, you know, then they can, like you say, then they can triumphantly say, hey, no atheist accepted. Yeah, or Christian or whoever it may be, right?
But really, if anybody knows somebody who thinks that they have a good argument that will substantiate anything in Islam, the Quran, Hadith, it doesn't matter, invite them here. No problem. I mean, it's not that you need permission from anyone to bring another Muslim here. Absolutely not. Anybody is free to invite any Muslim here, anyone. It doesn't matter. Well, except Kenny Boma or some idiot
yes.
like that.
Anyone that we've already established is worthwhile. Or let's put it as anyone that we haven't established is not worthwhile. Let's put it that way.
So I'm doing a Zakir-Naik at the moment. I'm saying bring anybody except. You have to be credible.
Yes.
Okay. Where do we go from here?
Zakir-Naik has been listed as an advisor to IERA. And I said, that was from TDS Dave. I said, that explains their profoundly poor understanding. If Zakir-Naik is an advisor. Jinn&Tonic show, he has never debated before, but he has studied Islam for 80 years. He's regarded as the most knowledgeable scholar in Saudi. Well, that's fine, but obviously we're not traveling to Saudi. And I'm sure he could be set up, if he's got 83. So many followers, he could do it face to face, right? Somebody can plug in an earpiece. We have technology today. I appreciate, you know, people in Saudi Arabia are still catching up with that, but they are able to join us in the 21st century. We have got technology that allows him to do these things without having to travel. So
and Varis,
ask him to join us.
If he's 83, how can he have studied Islam for 80 years? Do you think he started as a 3-year-old? Not really.
I will relapse into atheism as long as I can debate this guy in Mecca.
Yeah,
those are my terms. I'll debate the guy as an atheist. I'll have a relapse. I want to debate it in Mecca. Actually, on top of the Kaaba. Those are my. That's my criteria. Those are my demands.
Well, Standris, you've got to add an extra one that you are untouched and you have a private protection force to get you out when you're done. Because if you get in, that doesn't mean you get out, right?
Get out, exactly.
Well, that's why it's supposed to be. That's why they want in Saudi Arabia. So if I'm going to go down, I want to go down fighting at the Kaaba. I'm going to rock the
Kaaba. All right. Yes.
Chapter 2, 154. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to just do 153 again, just to remind everybody, and we'll just go straight into 154. So we finished the 153 yesterday. Again, if you're a Muslim and you want to join us, we're reading through Surah 2. We're at 153. If you want to give us your thoughts, then please let me know in the comments or through Hangouts or on Facebook. I'll have a look at those periodically. So 153, Sai International. O you who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. And 154, Sai International. And do not say about those who are killed in the way of Allah, they are dead. Rather, they are alive, but you perceive it not. And Yusuf Ali, and say not those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead. Nay, they are living, though ye perceive it not. So presumably, it's the unsaid thing that the soul is living. But again, you could certainly phrase this a lot better, right? That their soul remains, or their soul, is with Allah, presumably, or whatever the case is, right? And because there's the corpus as well, right? So this is the word for word. And do not say for the ones. Okay, so you see how they've got to put the brackets in for it to even remotely make sense. Who are slain in the way of Allah are dead, right? Nay, alive, but you do not perceive. So any thoughts there? Presumably they're obviously talking about, right, that people aren't actually dead, but their souls have gone to heaven or are alive or whatever the case is, right?
Well, just reading it. I think I'll give the benefit to Islam on this one. You know, it could well be that he's speaking in a poetic way. Remember, this is written in a very poetic manner, so some of it, I dare say, does concern a poetical context to it. So when it says they're slain, but then they're not dead, they're living, that could be one or two things: either they're up in heaven, or the memory of them is with Allah to resurrect them at a later date. So in the eyes of men, they're dead, but the eyes of God, they're still alive, so to speak.
But you missed out the important part there, Thana.
What's that?
Why were they killed?
Presumably in battle, because if we look at the
see, this is the point.
Yeah. Because here's Ibn Abbas in the Tafsir, and so-and-so has died and lost comfort and happiness. This is in order to aggravate sincere believers. Allah mentions the hypocrites. And it says, and call not those who are slain.
Exactly, those who are slain in the way of Allah. And this is where it's good to have a different translation, because what's in this other version that I'm using, it says killed in the cause of God.
Right, so it's in, yeah, so which would be, as far as I can tell, right, that would only be in a battle, right?
Yes, as a martyr, yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking about the day of Badr here, or any other battle.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Right, moving on to 155. Sahih International. And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. Yusuf Ali, be sure we will test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss in goods or lives or the fruits of your toils, but give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere. So again, obviously you need to be tested with fear and unpleasantness, right?
Oh, it sounds like they are going to get tests. There are going to be those that are slain. There are those that are going to lose stock or things, their assets, the meager things that they own. It's almost like he's trying to preemptive that rather than them being disillusioned with the losses that they're having to endure for the sake of Muhammad the Prophet, he's preemptive that will, because he's then going to try to say, no, this is a test by God. You sticking with this is you're proving loyalty to God by perseverance. It's a preemptive.
Yes, because if you were a prophet and God was with you, and you had followers, right? I, as a follower, my thought would be, hey, God is with us. He's going to protect us, and there's going to be, I'm not going to suffer any losses, right? But like you quite rightly say, this is all being set up so that when they inevitably do suffer losses, then he can just say, hey, this is just a test, right? Because this is like one of the biggest things that Muslims always tell me, right? It's a test. And why so religious in the comments is saying they are taken straight to paradise. Presumably, we're talking about the previous verse I think he was talking about.
If they're taken straight to paradise, then I thought that they were in the grave waiting for the day of resurrection, the day of judgment.
No, martyrs are different. This is the point that I think Weiser is trying to make. There's different categories. Number one, you've got 3 different levels of heaven, and then you have the normal people who need to wait until the day of resurrection, and then you have the martyrs who not only are guaranteed a seat right in the front row, but they also get to intercede, in other words, for family members. And now you have a whole list of deeds, depending on how many people you kill and how many things you've done in your life, how many family members you're able to take with you. This is the pyramid scheme. This is straight out of Scientology.
But the thing is, though, isn't there 7 heavens? Because when Muhammad went to the heaven, he split to each prophet on the door. So if what you're saying is true, there is one heaven with people waiting, then you got another heaven with the martyrs in it. Then there are 5 heavens with 5 prophets standing at each door, and each heaven standing there on his own. They've been standing there for the past 2,000-3,000 years on their own with nothing to do. And the only visit they've had is when Muhammad flew up that one night. And had a word. So they've had nothing to say or do for the past 1,400, 1,600 years.
Right. But this is a different thing. Well, you have different descriptions, you see. It depends on where you read. The 3 levels are in the Quran, the 7 are in the Hadith.
But as we're saying here, it's all around preparing these people so that when they inevitably, because again, if you had God with you, who could stand in the way of God and his followers, right? They would just wipe over everybody, and you would have all the goodness, So this is just to prepare them for this sort of thing, which is, as you say, there's going to be all of these things happening, and so this is all a test. So this is probably one of the verses where Muslims will have heard this, or it would have been quoted to them, and life is all about a test, right? And the test isn't one that you can live in harmony. The test is there's going to be these bad things happening, and this is all a test, right? So it's all a psychological ploy to get people to,
The question with Muhammad's dad living in hell, well, it's very difficult. Yes, he should, because he died as a pagan, but then on the other hand, he didn't know about Islam because nobody told him about it, because the Jews apparently used a different version and didn't give him the correct, the absolute best message, and only Muhammad did that. So Muhammad's father, even though he died as a pagan, he was never properly informed of the correct version of Islam, so he didn't go to hell. So there's different versions and different ways of explaining this.
Yeah. Right, so that's 155. 156. Say International. Who then disaster strikes them say? Who when disaster strikes them say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to him we will return. Yusuf Ali's, who say, when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong and to him we will return. So again, just sort of adding to the previous verse to make it, and again, this is kind of part of the indoctrination, right? Isn't it? Where you said stops as well. What did you call them? The first level there on the front row. Those people, the dying battle, the martyrs, right? And again, you can see how appealing this could be to somebody's brain who hasn't, had critical thinking installed. That if you die, you can intercede for your family. So all of these things, and you're with Allah, etc., and you're in the front row. So you can see how people can be easily brainwashed into, blowing themselves up and doing all of this because of all of these promises in the afterlife, right?
Yeah, but they have reports of mothers preparing their children for this, just so that the children can go and ask for a higher level for their family members. So mothers are actually generating the story and enforcing it. This is the sad part, I think.
Yes, especially to children, as you say, who definitely can't think critically and look towards their parents as authority figures, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add there, Thunderous?
No, I was just thinking something that Stops was saying there. In the Middle East, you could see certain areas where, when there is a war situation and children come back, it's almost like a shame that the children come back alive. They would consider it an honor for any family member that doesn't come back and actually dies as a martyr. It would be considered a great privilege that their child has died as a martyr.
Yeah, and you can see why, right? I mean, this is counter to all of our human intuition, our empathy, our bond with our own blood and our family. So this essentially turns that entire thing upside down. And because they think God believed this, because they think God said this, that their entire humanity is turned upside down.
It's everything in the Quran that you read is contrary to the nature of a human being. It's contrary to the inclinations of a human being. It's contrary to the wisdom or the outlook of a human being, irrespective of what your belief is. As human beings, we all tend to aspire to the same things or achieve the same goals, or have what I call a generic outlook or a generic disposition towards things. Most of it, like peace, and so on and so forth. But the Quran and the Manifesto of Islam is contrary to that generic inclination of a human being. And this is an example of that.
Yeah. And like Stop says, this is very sad. I would give up my life for my kid. But here they send the child out hoping that it doesn't come back. I mean, to the rest of us that I think are not indoctrinated with this sort of stuff, I couldn't think of any, there's not much worse that I could think of, right? Apart from maybe the child going to slavery or something else. But this is pretty much as bad as that, if not worse.
I think I don't want to quote a guy, but I remember one guy saying that Islam, it'll allow one to die for the cause. It thinks nothing for anybody to die for the cause and become a martyr, whereas you and I, the inclination would be to stop everything we're doing to go save somebody for our cause. Do you see the opposite inflection there?
Yeah.
They would rather die for the cause, whereas you'll sacrifice yourself to save somebody for the cause. Where you say you'll sacrifice yourself for your child. That's an inclination of any parent.
Well, presumably not everyone, right? And the only reason not, because if those people had been born somewhere else, they wouldn't have this idea. They'd have that natural inclination, right?
I think that there is a natural inclination, but Islam breeds it out of the person.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the term brainwashed. I would use the term programmed. It's programmed out of it, because when you use the term washed, you're making something clean. There's nothing clean about what Islam does to the brain.
Or you could put it the other way, of course, which is, that it's washing away your natural inclination, right? But yeah, I see what you mean as well. You could take it either way, but the natural inclination, I think, is being overridden with, these sort of thoughts. Oh, I'm just sharing the wrong screen there. Wonderful. Cool. Okay, so Stops, do you want to just read the chat then and have a chat to somebody there that maybe wants to join us? Secret skeleton, maybe you can have a look at that. Cool. Okay.
He's an atheist.
Yeah.
Totally useless. What do we want with atheists?
Right, let's go on to 157. 157.
Go on, I'm joking, okay? Please, guys.
Sahi International, 157. Those are the ones upon whom are blessings from the Lord and mercy, from their Lord and mercy, and it is those who are rightly guided. Yusuf Ali, they are those on whom descend blessings from Allah and mercy, and they are the ones that receive guidance. So again, this seems to be following on from each other and talking about the martyrs, right? So this is all about how, it appears to be how wonderful it is, and they're following God's will, and they'll be getting all these blessings, right? So, Stops, you mentioned earlier, you spoke earlier a little bit about interceding for family members. Is that in the Quran or the Hadith?
That sounds like a Hadith. But why so?
Yes.
Confirm that.
Yes, I'm trying to think where I get this from. This is not in the Quran. No. They hang on. It is. They can speak for their family members. They can speak for their. Okay. I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Okay, it's not a big thing. I just wanted to check. Let me just bring that up again, because I'm just checking Facebook every so often.
Does anybody else remember this? Because I'm too lazy to now go and look for this.
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, so more blessings, etc. So sort of following one from the other. Let's move on to the next one. 158, Sahih International. Indeed, as Safa and Al-Marwa, my pronunciation is terrible, so please, somebody else can always correct me, are among the symbols of Allah. So whoever makes Hajj the house or performs Umrah, there is no blame upon him for walking between them. And whoever volunteers good, then indeed Allah is appreciative and knowing. Yusuf Ali, behold, Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of Allah. So if those who visit the house in the season or at other times should compass them round, it is no sin in them. And if anyone obeyeth his own impulse to good, be sure that Allah is he who recognizeth and knoweth. So, what's the word? So convoluted, isn't it? I mean, you could just rewrite it in a much more simpler way. Again, I don't know Arabic. It'd be interesting to have an Arabic speaker to see whether they could improve upon this in some way, because the translation obviously just appears very convoluted. But there's a different.
Sorry, so I don't mean to interrupt you there, but I think we're bearing in mind a very valid point that you made several weeks ago, that sometimes they would use words just for the rhyming rhythm. So it doesn't bode well for the translation if you're looking deliberately for words to make it rhyme and poetic.
Yes, that could be the case, right? And it just doesn't translate very well. But again, if the corpus is an accurate translation, or you look at the root words, so it does talk about Hajj here, right? It doesn't say that when Yusuf Ali, interesting, house in the season. So maybe that's the reference to it, right? You go to Hajj in a particular season.
Well, this goes back to the intention. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you walk in between these hills or something. It doesn't matter what the actual ritual is that you follow, as long as your intention is to show some appreciation of Allah. Whether you go and you follow this to the T is not so important. So this is actually a very benign kind of sentence. I mean, it's stupid to tell people you have to go on Hajj anyway, because this is a pagan ritual. But then you don't need to go crazy, and that's it. So you're right. It would be half a sentence, and that's it. Don't go overboard with your belief. Finished.
Go for it, Thunders.
No, I was just saying, I don't know where he got it from, see, because from what I remember, this is related to Hagar and Ishmael, so it's almost like
Yes.
he's trying to bring Ishmael into it again. If I remember, it's water and running between. I think it's something to do with the seven and running between two mountains. She's looking for a son, because I always thought that's a significant thing. That number 7, you walk around the Kaaba 7 times, isn't it? It's like a number that reappears, an odd number that keeps reappearing in Islam. But what I don't understand is, what's the relevance? How does it serve as a symbol? What is the symbolic meaning of this? Or how do the two mountains serve as a symbol?
Well, they're lost in, well, this is the point. They're lost in the desert looking for water. And then they find it in Mecca.
So that's Safa and Marwa, the 2 mountains near Mecca, right? For people who didn't know.
Or hills.
There. Al-Jalalain. Or hills, yeah.
But what's the point? What is this? I mean, this is written in heaven hundreds of thousands of millions of years before it's revealed to Muhammad. So what is the relevance here? What is it telling us? What does it mean? How? Where's the benefit?
There is none. It's a ritual. I mean, what is the benefit of running around the Kaaba 7 times?
Presumably, Allah knew this was all going to happen, right? So this is all preordained. So at some point, it would have come to pass.
What is the point of this whole fasting? What is the point of all this praying? There is no point to any of these rituals.
To cleanse yourself, right? That's what I hear, isn't it? So Muslims cleanse themselves and they rededicate themselves even more to Allah and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but this is the wudu as well. I mean, these are just, people say, well, a lot of Muslim apologists say, well, we have the wudu, so we invented, cleanliness and things like that, which is bullshit, because you can do it with sand. It's just a ritual. It's only, I don't know, some sort of a token that you are part of this group. You are part of the in-group. You are doing the same thing as everybody else. You follow the ritual. This is how people greet each other. And the greetings vary. For example, in LA, you have all these different groups, these street gangs. They have developed their own greetings, their own code of conduct, and this is just one of them. This is just to identify you as part of the group.
Yeah, I think you've hit on something there that I said many years ago. I think I may have said this to you a few years ago, or asked of you, Stops, have you ever saw the movie The Warriors? And you didn't know what it was. You still haven't. But at the beginning of the movie, it's about one gang leader that wants to unite all the other rival gangs and create a super gang, so to speak.
Yeah,
and it's
that's what Muhammad did. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what Muhammad's exactly, because I used that movie as one line, but then I used the England soccer hooligans of the 80s as my other simile. What Muhammad was doing, or Islam, or how Islam functions on the world scene. But yeah, that's what he's doing here, is he's trying to unite. So this Safa and Marwa, I haven't looked into it. I just remember vaguely what its relationship is with Islam, but it could well be something that was already taking place prior to Muhammad's call to Islam, and he's bringing in those people who are practicing something to do with this, and he's trying to amalgamate that into the religion of Islam. I stand to be corrected on that, right? But in the language, it uses the term there, among the symbols of Allah. Well, those symbols weren't there prior to Muhammad's. I mean, they must have been there prior to Muhammad, rather. Otherwise, how else could there be? Well, they didn't just instantaneously turn up when Muhammad's got his prophet. Or those symbols must have been there prior to Muhammad's call to Islam. So, what was the symbols, and who were practicing those symbols for him to want to amalgamate them?
Yeah. By the way, this Ummah and Umrah, that's something different. Okay, Ummah is the nation of Islam. That's what they call themselves. And the Umrah is it's called the lesser Hajj. It's a Hajj is restricted to a time period and you do certain things, blah, blah, blah. And the lesser is the Umrah, where you go to Mecca as well and you perform the things, but you are not bound. You're not stenting this, you're not entering this state of idhan. So you're not in this holy state, and you don't have to follow all the rituals, and you don't have to follow everything. It's just a show of appreciation. It's an in-between thing, a voluntary thing that you do just to show your God what a good slave you are.
Okay, and just another quick point. I'm going to just interrupt you for
exactly the extra pilgrimage. Thank you.
Second, I'm just going to interrupt for a second, because there's another thing that you can do here, and I'm just going to bring this on screen and share this now. So here is our Discord server. So we're just at the moment. This is just a screenshot of the Discord server, and I'll post a link. It's now in the chat as I speak. I've just posted the link. The one thing you can do, you'll see here, these are all the text channels. Here it says voice. This is the daily chat if you want to join us, and we are on the daily. Here's the live. So you can see that I'm in there at the moment. I'm muted. I've got a bot in there. Now, our bot is actually playing this live stream at the moment. So, and Shane is in there. He's one of our admins. Again, thanks to Shane for setting all of this up and making it look brilliant and it working. So again, a great shout out to Shane. Thank you for that. You can see Rational Reviews in the after show waiting already. So there's somebody in the after show now. But if you were walking around,
that is dedication.
It is. But if you're walking around, because the moment if you're on a mobile phone and you are listening to YouTube, you've got to have YouTube open, right? And the moment you move away or you take a call, you lose it. Now, the advantage of downloading the Discord app is, A, you can chat to us more often, but B, you can go in here. If you don't need to see what's being said, you just want to listen, you can join Discord, join the link that we've put there, go to the live show here, so you can see under voice, General Daily Live Show. We'll be going to an after show over here, but you can join this like I have, mute yourself, and then just listen in online, and then you'll be hearing it maybe even a little bit quicker, or at least at the same time pretty much, because I'm actually running the live stream from here. So I just wanted to share that we are trying to build up the Jinn&Tonic Discord server, so that gives you the opportunity to join us there, which we'll go to after this show. Thank you for that, and we will now get back to our regular programming.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Yes, indeed. So there we go. Okay, so that was 158. 159. Sahih International. Indeed, those who conceal what we send down of clear proofs and guidance after we made it clear for the people in the scripture, those are cursed by Allah and cursed by those who curse. Yusuf Ali. Those who conceal the clear signs we send down and the guidance after we have made it clear for the people in the book, on them shall be Allah's curse and the curse of those entitled to curse. So again, there's a lot of cursing going on here, right?
There's a lot of whining.
And this is obviously for those who apparently conceal. Now, I wonder what conceal means. That's presumably means that you know that it's true and you're hiding it, right? So there's somebody who didn't know or didn't believe, such as the three of us. Would we be cursed under this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, how so? Because we don't believe it, right? But presumably it's a clear sign that you couldn't not believe it.
No, we're not saying, no, we are not acknowledging that this is revelation.
let's just presume so. He's talking yet again, because who will he be talking now? Who is this verse referring to? None other than the great friends of the Muslim world, the Jews. So it's referred, because who else will have something that they have concealed that Allah had sent down as a guidance?
Yeah.
So that'd have to be some kind of religious text that the Jews are holding, that Muhammad is saying, well, basically, you should know who I am because it's written in your scripture. And the Jews are probably saying, no, you're not, mate. You're not in our scripture. We're waiting for somebody else.
Yeah, but I think this is more general. I think this goes to everybody who says, well, listen, what are you saying? Where's the sign? Where's the revelation? What is the significance? No, it's not. This is primitive. So I think, like, even, do you know the sentence by Al-Razi? I mean, you come to us with a book which is full of nonsense, and then you claim blah, blah, blah. So there were a lot of people at the time who were mocking Muhammad.
Yeah, but it's just that in the ayah, it's got people in the book, which is singular, not plural. So when it's talking about people in the book, it can only be one bunch of people that he's referring to. On them, not on those, but on them. It's like he's pointing his finger to the Jews again. It will be Allah's curse and the curse of those entitled to curse. And if you look at the Islamic relationship with the Jews, it kind of follows through even to today, that the hatred that they have, the Muslim world has for Jews, it's there for all to see.
Yeah. Good. Moving on. 160. Say International. Except for those who repent and correct themselves and make evident what they concealed, those I will accept their repentance. And I am the accepting of repentance, the merciful. Yusuf Ali, except those who repent and make amends and openly declare the truth. To them I turn, for I am oft returning, most merciful. So if you do what I say and repent and say sorry, then I will accept your repentance.
What is an oft returner?
Oft returning, so presumably coming back. I'm assuming.
Where does he go? Does he go for a walk or what?
Well, returns to them, as in like comes into their awareness. Maybe you could argue something like that,
or into their favor. You're returning into my favor.
Okay, this is the typical. This is this yo-yo thing. Okay, carrot and stick. 159. Yeah. I am going to condemn. 160. I'm most merciful. Next one, condemn. So it's always going up and down and up and down. What the hell is this God? Who does he think he is? Either he's condemning somebody or he's all-merciful. An all-merciful God cannot be like condemning all the time. It doesn't work. So this is a contradiction in 3 contradictions in 3 sentences. It doesn't work.
Well, he's obviously telling you, don't do all of these things. But hey, if you do and you repent, then I'm here to, accept your repentance if you openly declare the truth, right? So don't do this, but there's a way out, right?
And because, if you don't, I'm merciful anyway.
Well, because I think also, somebody could do this, right, and go, oh well, I'm screwed, right, in that sense. And so he gives them this backdoor because people are going to fail the test, right? So if he doesn't remind them that there is a way out, they could just go, okay, well, I'm doomed. I'm not going to be a Muslim anyway. So maybe that's another way to kind of go, no. You can still do it if you make amends.
But if you look at 159, it says at the beginning of the Yusuf Ali, those who conceal the signs, the clear signs. The thing is, if it's prophecy is not science. Prophecy is a prediction, if you like, for want of a better word, of a future event or a future outcome that's yet to take place. So it should say there, those who conceal the prophecies, if it's relating to Muhammad, because signs, by anyone's understanding, will be something miraculous, something beyond nature taking place, something out of the realms of human being comprehension or ability to produce. So that would be a sign. So I don't understand the language here and how it's trying to make sense to the audience, because if it's relating to signs, Muhammad had none. But if it's relating to prophecies, well, prophecies aren't signs.
But I think also when I've spoken to Muslims, signs are all around us, right? And all times. Everything is a sign of God at the moment, right? And whatever, Muhammad said they would interpret as a sign, right?
How could you conceal? So if they're all around you all the time, let's say a tree is a sign of God, how could you conceal a tree from the audience? How can you conceal the sky? How could you conceal the falling rain?
Well, you wouldn't conceal it in that sense. All you'd say is you deny that it comes from God, right? Or maybe there's another source. So that's
the point.
I'm just trying to.
Because you can't deny day and night. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can just deny the creator, or that it's Muhammad's specific creator, right? And so that's how you could, quote unquote, conceal it, I suppose.
But they would have had a God, because he's appealing to a godly audience. He's not appealing to a godless audience. So I'm looking at it from the audience point of view. If I was there watching it, and the words don't make sense with what he's trying to say.
Well, only only if you if you took it that the signs, like that, part of the signs is this new, quote unquote, revelation, right? And so if they're not accepting these signs, then
yeah. But if you listen to what Benny said a few weeks ago, he's saying his words were miraculous. They were miraculous. Was nobody came with speech like this before. Yeah, but what is speech? Speech is nothing more than a thought process that is brought out through a breathing mechanism and through your larynx and your tongue. That's all it is. There's nothing miraculous about that. The ability to speak is not a miraculous. So where are the signs? What are the signs? If you're looking at nature as a sign, well, you can't conceal nature as a sign. You might be able to deny who the God is. That's not concealing God. That's diverting it, not concealing it.
And Why So Religious in the comments there makes another point. Technically, the word ayah, which we translate as verse, is sign. So those who read this ayah sign and deny this ayah sign. So there's another perspective on it as well. But again, as you said, this could be made much clearer than this, right? Because you've now got to try and work out what the sign is. And so again,
it's using those rhetorical devices that Hamza Sortsis and the like love to use. Well, the Islamic word has 4 meanings. It can mean that. It can mean that. It can mean that.
Correct. But if you understand Arabic, presumably, and you read in context, you could find out what the meaning is. Because if there was more than one meaning in a verse, then that would obviously be confusion, right? Which, according to Muslims, Allah can't do, right?
But the thing is that if we go by what Weiser is saying, and it's like it says a clear sign, and Allah says is the book made clear, there's nothing clear about this discussion in the first place on this ayah, because we haven't progressed any further from 159. We're still trying to work out what the word means. So where's the clear sign in this?
Well, I think you're speaking to the converted on this side of the camp. There's, and that's why it's so good to go through this. And if you're a viewer, you're watching this, and a Muslim comes to you and say, if you don't believe this, what evidence have you got? And you can point to this book, right? You could ask them, ahead of time, is this book being sent down from Allah? Is it clear, concise, complete, and error-free, right? And if they say yes, then you can say, well, in that case, the Quran is evidence against your God. It's the best evidence we have, right? Mm-hmm. No God could write such a confusing, convoluted,
repetitive.
Thank you. Yeah. Laced with some errors, of course. Nobody could write it like this. Well, you could if you were a bumbling God, or you wanted to do this on purpose, right? To create confusion, then you could do this, right? But if not, then you couldn't possibly write it like this. Right, I'm going to read the next one, and then I think we've got a Muslim that might want to join us. So let me just read 161. Sahih International. Indeed, those who disbelieve and die while they are disbelievers, upon them will be the curse of Allah and of the angels and the people altogether. Yusuf Ali. Those who reject faith and die rejecting, on them is Allah's curse and the curse of angels and all of mankind. So just before I move away from this, here is one of those verses, right? Now this, if we were to use the hate speech laws that some of our Muslim interlocutors want to introduce, I would quite happily put this in as hate speech, right? Okay. And if I put this in as hate speech, then you can't use the book, right? Otherwise, you're going to cherry pick the bits you want. I'll leave it to you guys to comment further on that. I'm just going to see if I can bring in a Muslim here.
Oh, no doubt what you've just said there is bang on point, though. in light of recent events on the world scene, and in light of the arguments about free speech, and in light of what Muslims claim to be in Islamophobia, that when you look at such words as this is from the God of the religion of Islam. So that would mean 1.5 billion people on earth have no choice but to subscribe and agree and stand with the very words written in chapter 2 and verse 161. Those who reject faith and die rejecting it, on them is Allah's curse, and the curse of the angels and of all mankind. So we are cursed people in the eyes of Allah and the eyes of 1.5 billion human beings, because we reject their God and we reject their prophet. I'm now waiting for Theresa May, who's hopefully listening on to the show, to next time she addresses the House of Commons, she'll have some kind of solidarity with the Gin and Tonic show, and in one hand have a copy of Francis Galton's Eugenics for the atheists, and a copy of the Bible in the other hand for me.
I'll probably go with, at this stage, I'll probably go with a big picture from Sean Carroll, if I may. That would be my number one, quote unquote, atheist book, or as he calls it, poetic naturalism. So if she can have that, you have the Bible and the Quran, then I think we've covered some of the, and then of course you've got the Bhagavad Gita and other things. So this is going to be pretty heavy, right? She's probably going to have to have somebody carry all of these for her. But hopefully we'll be joined in a moment by Muhammad Islam, aka M Stacks Gang, who's going to, according to the comments there, he's going to bring us some guidance. So we look forward to some guidance momentarily. In the meantime, I'm just going to go back to the main.
That's also worth noting in this ayah as well, that Allah's curse and the curse of the angels. I mean, angels don't have free will, so why would they make the choice to curse if they don't have the ability to make the choice to curse in the first place?
Just to rub it in.
I like stops short and to the point. But I also, that's a good point as well. Can angels curse? Surely it's the jinns that do cursing.
No, they can't. They can't. They just do as told. That's it. They obey.
But can angels? Okay, so when you say they do as they're told, can they do, or can they be corrupted, or can they do something that Satan tells them to do, or can they only obey God?
They can only obey God.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, this is it. They're robotic. And any time that you read anything about the angels in this Islamic literature, it's a confusing situation with them, because they're portrayed as robots. They have no free will. They do as they're told. They're given commands that don't make sense, like prostrate yourself before Adam, which is totally does not make sense at all. Then they have now here they're cursing, which if they don't know what they're doing, why are they doing it? And if they don't have free will, how do they know they're doing it in the first place? And why are they doing it if they don't know they're doing it, or why are they doing it if they don't want to do it? They don't not want to do it because they don't want to do it either, because they don't have free will. But also all of mankind as well. So who is this mankind that's cursing the cursed?
All right. Let me welcome in Muhammad Islam. Muhammad Islam, do you want to take off your camera, or do you want to leave that on? Because at the moment you've got your camera on, right? You are live and you're unmuted. Hello, Muhammad, are you there? There we go, that's better. Now you've taken the camera off.
Hey, Mohammed.
Just speak to us, make sure your mic is working. Go ahead. Yeah, just turn your mic up a bit. I mean, I think I can actually make you a little bit louder as well here. Let me see if I can do that. Go ahead. So you've been listening in and you wanted to give us some guidance. Where are we going wrong, or what guidance do you want to offer?
No, I was talking to you as Pakistani atheist, I was not speaking to you necessarily speaking.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, but why is it a loss if you don't follow what the Quran says, and why is it a loss if you don't follow what Muhammad says?
Then your hereafter is kind of messed in it, because by that you're gonna go hell in it. That's a big loss, man. You're sacrificing this life for the hereafter, so that's a big gamble.
Why would you be losing your afterlife?
Because this life you messed up in it. You never got the sincere guidance. You're there. You reject the Most High, the one who created you, and you're there mocking him. So it's only fair for you to get punished in the hereafter, isn't it?
No, I don't understand the logics.
Why are you mocking? It's
I
not that you're mocking. We're critiquing, right? Are you talking about us or other people?
I'm just saying. I'm talking about what's it called? In general, people generally, innit? If you're here, you reject the Most High. You reject the one who created you. It's only fair if I accept him, and I accept that he created me, and I follow his guidance. I believe it's only fair for you to get punished and for me to get rewarded, isn't it?
No. Do the deeds in any way go into this, come into this? If I do good deeds other than that, are they going to be counted?
You're doing good deeds on behalf of what, though? You reject the one who created you. How are you going to
No,
do
I'm
good
not.
deeds?
What happens if I don't follow what is in the Quran, but I still do good deeds?
Well, faith and good deeds are interlocked, innit? So
No.
yeah, they are.
Well, not according to the Quran, they're not.
Yes, they are. According to the Quran, they're interlocked.
Okay, if I follow the Quran and I keep sex slaves and I rape a couple of women, then I go to paradise.
Oh, you can have a very long punishment.
So, okay, I can't understand what you're saying. I'm what?
I said to you, you're gonna have a very long punishment. So you're gonna be in hell, and no one can
Yeah, but
stand
hang on.
hell
The
for
Quran
even-
tells me to keep slaves, to beat my wives, and to have sex slaves. So
But we can
where's
speak
it
about all,
wrong?
not necessarily speaking. It doesn't tell you to beat wives. That's a lie. It doesn't tell you to keep slaves. It tells you to free a slave in Abbas or Allah.
It doesn't tell you that you can have a sex slave. It doesn't tell you that you can have sex with a slave even if they are married. It doesn't tell you those things.
No, you can't. That's a haram. That's a sin.
Okay, can you show me in the Quran where it says that it is haram to have sex with a
Oh,
sex slave?
you can't have sex with a married person, fam. What's wrong with you?
Okay, show me in the Quran, please.
What do you mean Quran? I'll give you a hadith for it. 1 second.
No, I don't want hadith. I want Quran.
What do you mean? I'm not Quranist.
I don't care whether you're a Quranist or not.
What
I'm talking about the Quran. If I can show
you
you a sentence in the Quran which allows me to have sex with a woman when even if she's married, that supersedes any hadith.
Can you give us the verse again, Stops?
424.
1 second, I can pull it up. The Islamic literature does not only include the Quran, it includes the hadith, and also tafsir and ijma.
I don't fucking care. I'm talking about the Quran.
No, if you don't care, then that's it. It's you, innit? So you're stupid. What can you do?
Well, hang on a moment, Mohammed. Here's the verse online. We are digressing a little bit, but here it is. We'll get to this anyway, but there's 424. So Yusuf Ali, also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your right hand possesses. Thus has Allah ordained prohibitions against you. Except for these, all others are lawful, provided you seek in marriage with gifts from your property, desiring chastity, not lust, seeing that ye derive benefit from them. Give them their dowers at least as prescribed, but if after a dower is prescribed, agree mutually that there is no blame on you, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. So what is your right hand possesses?
Can I just interject there and just say that Peace TV's Asim Al-Hakim, a scholar of great repute in the religion of Islam, confirms this sex with what his own words were, what your right hand possesses. So this is not just us saying this. This is the Muslim hierarchy of scholars testifying to the authenticity of this.
So if you're not into the Quran and you don't care what Allah says, what your God says, but you care more what Muhammad says, there's something wrong with you.
No, you're making stuff up, man. You're making stuff up. Nowhere does it say there that you can have sex with people that are married. You just made it up. It doesn't say.
That's what it says here in the Quran. What do you mean? Can you read? Can you read English? Do you want what language would you like this in?
Stops. Let's read this again. Also, prohibited married women except those your right hand possesses. So if you possess a married woman, which is a slave, then you are entitled, right? There we go. Can you see on screen?
Well, that's your interpretation. All it says there is also prohibited you are married with except those your right hand possesses. Where the hell does it say there that you can marry? What's it called? What's his name? Stop is saying. He just made that up, man. And if you actually look at Tafsir ibn Kathir, let's see what he says there. So he says, yeah, for those who your right hand possesses, except those whom you acquire through war, for you are allowed to such women after making sure they are not pregnant. Imam Ahmad recorded that we capture some women from the area of those who are married and we dislike them.
Okay, so you're allowed to have sex with slaves. Now, this is the guidance from God. So God tells you you're allowed to have sex with slaves. Brilliant.
Wasn't this a situation where they were talking about coitus interruptus?
No, that's hadith. That's Muhammad. Muhammad encourages his men to rape female captives.
Oh, you're lying here. He says that he disliked it when they were captured.
Oh, God. Are you one of those, really?
Bro, listen, your agenda is not working with me, so I know my book, innit? So if you look at our tafsir, the biggest
Well,
tafsir...
you don't know shit.
You
I've
don't know.
showed you 2 things now where you are wrong, and you still have a big mouth.
No, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's your interpretation. It's a far-stretched interpretation, first of all. You got no
What does
backing.
it say? Prohibited are married women except...
The problem with you is you got agenda here. You don't know the Islamic literature. The Islamic literature includes hadith, tafsir, qiyas, ijma. It includes a lot of stuff that you're missing. So what you want to do is use your own intellect and try to push your agenda through the Quranic verses. So I'm trying to say to you, holistically, if you look at that verse with the hadith explaining it, it says something totally contradictory to your interpretation. So if you're not going to accept it, I don't care.
Muhammad, you don't see stop.
One at a time, guys. We can't hear each other.
Hierarchy, it doesn't work. There is a hierarchy in Islamic texts. If you don't understand that, then maybe you should go to a different show, because that's not...
I'm a Muslim. You don't understand it. I'm a Muslim.
Who cares what you are?
Okay, thank you. So let me explain to you what a Muslim believes.
I don't give a fart about that. You either know the hierarchy of Islamic texts or not.
Before we all start, being...
Oh, listen. Do you think that once we read a verse, we come up with our own interpretation? Do you think I come up with my own interpretation? I have to look at what...
But Muhammad, with the greatest respect, I think the difficulty we have here is that your own God in the Quran says this is a book made clear and easy to understand. You've reeled off 4 or 5 different outside sources to help us understand what one book means, when the book itself says it's easy.
So why are you always taking a verse solitarily and using it? Like the verse you just said, another verse says it directly tells us to go to the scholars and their explanation.
Where
so
does
I don't understand why.
So the scholars are more than Allah.
فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ, those who are knowledgeable.
But Allah doesn't say go to the scholars. He says the book.
He says the people of knowledge. Who's the people of knowledge? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ, the people of knowledge.
Okay, let's go through this slowly, Mohammed, just so we can get clarity here. What's the order? What's the order and sequence? What's the most important thing? So how do you decide where to go first? What's the first thing you do to find out something in Islam?
I'll read a Quranic verse.
Right.
Then
and what do you do after that?
After I look at tafsir, where the tafsir, like Ibn Kathir, Ibn Abbas, all the biggest tafsir, yes. They bring a hadith along with their opinion, and I check that secondly. Then I check ijma'. There's something called qiyas, the consensus. There's a lot of stuff that you have to look at. It's not solely just reading a verse and then coming up with your own interpretation.
Okay,
and that's what I do this time.
Good. I wanted to understand your view, and obviously then you go to the hadith, right? So here it is on screen again. So we have read this part about married women except what your right hand possesses, and here is your Sahih hadith, right? We got female captives in war booty, and we used to do coitus interruptus. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, you know what it is, okay? And so we asked Allah's Messenger about it, and he said, do you really do that? I.e., do you really, withdraw before ejaculating? Repeating the sentence thrice. Repeating the question thrice. There is no soul that is destined to exist, but will come into existence until the day of resurrection. What do you understand by this hadith?
What do I understand by it?
Can you see it on screen there? Do I need to make it bigger, or is it okay? Can you see it?
Oh, you know what? I have to check the interpretation of the ulama.
But hang on, guys. Let's just see if we can work it out, right? I mean, because
what's your outlook on this verse? What's your outlook on this hadith?
Okay, so these are obviously his men are talking about the female captives, right? And they used to withdraw, before ejaculating, right? So that means they were having sex with him, and so they asked Muhammad about this, and he said, "Do you really do that?" In other words, why are you doing that? And there's a question mark there, right? And he said, no soul is destined to exist, but that will come into existence. So in other words, what do you understand by that? He's asking them, why did they withdraw before ejaculation, right?
He just says, do you really do that? I believe that's a rhetorical question. And then he said, there's no soul that is destined to exist, but will come into existence. He's not necessarily telling you.
He's repeating it 3 times. Let's not gloss over the fact
Rob,
that
this is actually a bad example because it's not so explicit. The other ones are much more explicit.
Which is the other one you want me to go to?
There's plenty. The most explicit one, which is the most clear one, which is the one that I'm always using, is in Sahih Muslim. And in Sahih Muslim, it is book number 8, 3371. Go take the whole site out and go to Sahih Muslim.
Yeah. Okay, so Sahih Muslim.
Okay. Now do this again. And look for.
I've got to type a word in, right? Otherwise, it's not going to.
Yeah, look for sexual.
Well, we're digressing. We're digressing.
Yes, of course we're digressing because I was going for the Quran and you didn't want to.
No, we were talking about Surah 2, Ayah 161.
No, we're talking about 4:24 because we were looking at the claim that if you do not believe, you are automatically stuffed and you will go to hell. And you said that we need the guidance. And I said, well, hang on, what is this guidance? Is having sex with a sex slave the right guidance that you need to get to heaven?
That's the problem, man. The guidance is accepting the Most High first of all. If you're not going to accept that, this old sex slaves and all this is not going to make sense to you. Innit? If you don't accept the Most High himself, you're rejecting him. Why the hell are you even talking about this for?
Well, we're asking your opinion. But Muhammad, you came on for guidance, right? And so I guess it is a bit of a tangent, but the question is related to what you said, right? It's what you brought up, and you said you need to follow the Quran and Hadith, right? And so Stop Spamming's question to you is this one of the commands that you need to follow, right? It's in the Quran, as we've seen. And we've got the Hadith here, right? So having sex with married women except at your right hand. So in other words,
you know what command is? Command is an imperative, isn't it? I don't see no command words being used there in these sentences. I don't see no command. What was it called? Do this, do that. I don't see that here. So I wouldn't even say it's a command.
What is the word prohibited for you? Is that a command or not?
Command is when you're told to do something. Prohibition is not
command. Not to do something. Is prohibited a command or not?
Prohibition.
Yes, is that a command?
Not necessarily, not in this context.
So you can eat pork. Congratulations, you are truly a Quranic scholar.
Well, the problem, listen, the way you're thinking is totally mistaken, man. What's wrong with you?
It's my mistake. I know it's my mistake. It's my fault that the Quran is so badly written. I know.
The way you even approach the Quranic verses is absolutely, totally wrong, man. Like you just read a verse and then you right now. You read a verse, you come up with your own interpretation and say, "Yo,
that's audacious. How can I read a sentence and then make up my mind what the sentence says?" That's really bad.
Like, "Yo, there's 3 contradictions here." I was like, "Yo, where's the 3 contradictions that you just seen?"
Muhammad, listen, please try and make some sense, please.
Bro, you're not making sense.
You're making a fool of yourself. All right, please don't.
Then 3 verses.
Come on.
Stuff up under.
Let's dial it back a little bit here. What part of this is not clear to you, Muhammad? Yeah. The prohibition is an instruction, right? It's not a guidance, as in do what you want, or here's some things you can follow if you choose. A prohibition is an instruction, right? If I prohibit you from doing something, I'm not asking would you like to or not. I'm saying do not do this or do this, depending on which way you look at it, right? Seems to me this word prohibited here is a pronouncement, right? Prohibited there as well. So
bro, it didn't even say prohibited. No, that verse that you brought up, it says "wal muhsinat." Yeah, it doesn't even say prohibition. It's in brackets.
You have to look at the context. You have to go to sentence number 23. There you have the prohibition.
It says "wal muhsinat." Wal muhsinat does not mean prohibition, bro.
Go look at 23.
Okay, let's look at 23 then. You said to me 4:24.
Yeah, 4:23. Yeah, what about it?
There you have the word prohibited. You want the word prohibited? There it is.
But you gave me 4:24, innit? So you're jumping. You're going to 4:23.
Oh, bloody hell. No, please get this guy off here. I mean, please, this is the worst. I mean, this is ridiculous. Come on, this is not the level that we need here.
Well, you're crying. That's the problem. You're getting refuted here. You're making stuff up under that. There's no contradiction.
It seems like you haven't read the Quran, Muhammad, or you don't understand it. When did you read the Quran and who gave you your understanding?
I have read the Quran. I memorized the Quran. What do you mean I have read the Quran? don't believe that.
Please get the fuck out of here. Yes, sis. You're a joke.
You can laugh like an idiot.
Come on,
like
this is a troll.
You can laugh like a donkey how much you want. You talk shit, man. Everyone hears you. We all laugh at your what's it called, interpretations, fam. You don't make sense. You talk crap half the time. You make up your own interpretations.
Mohammed, before I don't want to be rude with you, and I certainly don't want you to be rude with me. Let's all chill out for a moment.
This guy's being rude, though. I haven't been rude once since I came on here. I can be rude. I can start swearing at him the way he's swearing.
You have been. You've been very cordial. If you remember the last time we had a discussion, we were very respectful to each other. We both have different.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about this guy. And he's being very rude to me, so I can be rude. I can start swearing, but I don't want to, man.
No,
nice.
we don't want you to. We're glad that you're on the show and you're trying to give us some insight. But with the greatest respect to you,
what respect?
We're not trying to be rude with the Quran. I mean, we have an audience that listen to the show. And they're listening to what we're saying as well, and they're having the same difficulties that we have. That when Allah makes the statement that this is a book made clear, this is a book easy to understand, and there are certain ayahs in the Quran that are quite clear. They don't need external opinions about them. They certainly don't need hadith or opinions of scholars or historians. The texts are quite clear to understand. For certainly, there are one or two that you might need a scripture to interpret scripture, so to speak. But this is quite Janet and John. It's quite open that having sex with all that your right hand possesses, or another one that talks about war booty, treating women in this way, or coitus interruptus. Do you not see the pattern there or the mentality or the manifesto or the attitude that Allah and Muhammad have towards women? And it's in contrast to the propaganda that we receive through the media, where Islam and Islamic sympathizers claim that Islam came and liberated women and gave them rights. We're not seeing this in the discussion that we're having at the moment.
Oh, this guy, stop scamming, yeah? He digressed from speaking from Surah 2. He jumped to Surah 4, innit? So he was scared to talk about Surah 2, innit? So that's the problem here. I don't know why
I'm not scared of anything or anyone. You were the one who said we have to follow guidance. And I asked you, is this the guidance that you're talking about?
I said the guidance is the Quran, the Sunnah, and accepting the Mosai.
That's why I asked, is it guidance that we are allowed to have sex with sex slaves, even if they are married? That was my question. And you said this is not because you don't know the Quran. So I showed you in the Quran, and I'm still asking you, do you think this is guidance that we can have sex with a sex slave, even if they're married?
You can't. I'll give you the hadith right now.
I think we've got to an impasse there, but can I just bring this discussion back to the discussion we're talking about this evening? I'd like to bring out a point that Rob's brought out earlier on with reference to verse 161. Now, Muhammad, you'll be very clear about the atrocious atrocity that was committed in New Zealand earlier on in the week, and there is nobody on this panel that would agree with that barbaric action that took place earlier in the week, where a man went into a mosque and murdered over 40 human beings and injured several others. Okay, let's make that clear. However, there has been a rhetoric since claiming that it is because of Islamophobia that has been the cause of these kind of attacks. Would you agree with that?
To a certain extent, yeah.
Okay, if you agree with that, and we know, statistically speaking, and my personal reference point has always been the Salman Rushdie affair from the late 1980s. Would you not agree then that do you think that people who are critical of Islam should be silent? Do you think that they should not have an opinion, or they should keep their opinions to themselves?
You can be critical. There's a difference between critical and insulting, isn't it? So there's a fine line between two of them.
Can you explain to me then, with the greatest of respect, Surah 2, verse 161?
Surah 2, 161, yeah.
It's on screen at the moment. Indeed, those who disbelieve and die while they are disbelievers, upon them will be the curse of Allah and of the angels and the people all together.
Yeah, that's the curse of Allah and the angels, because you're a disbeliever. And the disbelievers are the worst of creations according to the Quran and according to Islam anyway.
Excellent.
So I think this.
So excellent. And as a Muslim, you would stand by those words, because this is your Allah speaking. This is his opinion of people who do not accept Islam. They are, as you've just put it, the worst of creatures. Allah curses them. No doubt Muhammad curses them. the angels are cursing them, though that's a subject in itself. Then it goes on to say all mankind are cursing them, and I'm sure that's with reference to all mankind.
He's saying, yeah, when he says "Wakafur ulaika," he's talking about the death when you die. This is gone when you pass away. You're in the grave, and then the cursing starts. Then it doesn't start while you're alive, right? When you're speaking to me right now, you're a disbeliever. You're not getting cursed. We don't know if you're going to be guided. Not according to this verse. It says and die while they are disbelievers, doesn't it?
But I am the worst of creatures in another verse. But what we're looking at when you brought that in, it's like the sum total. Let's bring out all the scriptures that Allah speaks of with reference to non-believers. You've got the worst of creatures. Okay, we can put that to the side and we can address that when we come up to it. However, one says, those who reject faith and die rejected, on them is Allah's curse and the curse of angels. So basically, if you die as a non-Muslim, this is the Allah on those people who have died. So, for instance, let's say the victims of Beslan, they died as non-Muslims. This is Allah's curse. He's cursing them at the moment. The victims of the Muslim that shot was about 50 people in the nightclub in America, Allah is cursing them. The victims of World War II, Allah is cursing them because they died as non-believers. The angels,
it's not perpetual. It's not like every second. It's not constant. So they're cursed because they're disbelievers necessarily. So when you pass away, I think this is another point in it. The disbelievers have a harsh punishment. So they get punished, they get cursed. That's the nature of people who are disbelievers, isn't it?
Do you want to make clear, Thunderous, what your point is to him there, so he can?
Did you not think that such verses like this, when we consider what people consider as hate speech or Islamophobia and that if that kind of free speech has to be curtailed, do you not think that ayahs like this should be curtailed and banned in public too?
Not necessarily. This is talking about the hereafter, so I don't understand how.
Before you get to the hereafter, I'm living here now. I could die tomorrow, but I'm alive now, and I already know that this is what Allah's going to do. He's going to curse me when I die because I died as a non-believer, and all my relatives that are dead, His curse is on them because they died as non-believers too. So all the audience are listening. They'll have relatives that are dead, and Allah's curse and the angels' curse are on those that are dead. This is what your Allah's view is of those people that died.
But this is the lowest end of the spectrum. You're talking about cursing here. The disbelievers are going to be punished in a very harsh way. So I don't understand why this verse got any. This is the lowest end. If you want to talk about punishment and what's it called, cursing, you should go to a better verse. I can give you better verses. This is the nature of disbelievers.
I know, but we're beginning to start to ramp up towards the rhetoric and manifesto of what Allah's attitude is towards non-believers, and this is a great starting point.
I told you they're the worst of creations, isn't it? The disbelievers.
Yeah, we know that. We haven't got there yet, and believe me, that is my always main go-to when if you're gonna ban free speech, then you have to ban the Quran. You have to destroy the Quran as long with free speech, because that's the greatest insult that you can ever label to a human being. God makes the claim that a non-believer is the worst of mankind. If you want to put a dung beetle as a creature, your opinion of me, Muhammad, is no different to Muhammad Allah's opinion of me. I'm even lower than a dung beetle. Because
first of all, a human's opinion to another human is different from the Most High's opinion.
Yeah, but Allah says that a non-believer is the worst of creatures. Now, people say insects and things like that are little creepy crawly creatures. So a dung beetle is a creature by implication. Allah's view of me as a non-believer is I'm lower than the dung beetle. In fact, there's no creature lower than me. I am the lowest of the low. That's the rest.
If you die in your disbelief,
this verse is talking about if He's going to curse me when I die. The one you quoted is that's when I'm still alive. I'm not even dead yet, and I'm the worst of creatures.
Yeah, because if you want to go why you're the worst of creation, we can go into the reason why.
Why is it if a person criticizes a God that has this kind of manifesto and attitude, that person is condemned. But the God and the people who support these verses, they are allowed to have free speech. Can you explain that?
You have to give me an example where I don't see no contradiction. If someone's scripture is saying the same thing about me, I wouldn't have no problem with it. I don't have no.
But you don't like it when there's a political ideology like from the right wing that says that we need to ban Muslims. You would say that that is hate speech, that's Islamophobic, and blah blah blah. And out comes all the rhetoric, and out comes the scholars for dollars, and out comes all the spin, all the word salad, all the propaganda. We will use that against non-believers or those against Islam when somebody says offensive to Islam. But when the religion that I support says something against non-believers, oh, that's just religion, that's just Allah, that's all right, that's free speech, we're entitled to that. Is that your point of view?
This has no effect on your lifetime, does it? Does it have any effect on your life today? Like, if I say to you, you're the worst of creation, are you going to die or something? If people are saying they're going to ban Muslims, they're going to do X, Y, and Z, this is affecting us in this life, isn't it?
It's just words.
Well, I'm saying because they're trying to put that in action.
But Allah's trying to put this in action. Allah's going to put this in action if he's
Yeah. Not in this life, though, man. Not in this life. In the hereafter.
It is in this life that I'm going to die, and it's in this life I'm going to be cursed by God. It is in this life that I'm going to be. I am the lowest of creatures. That is the manifesto and ideology that you adhere to and you support.
Oh wait, it has no effect in your life. You're not gonna. It has no effect on you.
I do have an effect when I walk into a certain area that's got a high Muslim population, and I'm walking through, and I know that their opinion of me is I'm a kafir, I'm a kuffar, I'm the worst of creatures, and Allah's curse is on me, and they're hissing as I walk past. And I'm an apostate because I speak out against Islam, so I'm under punishment by death anyway.
Well, I don't consider that hate speech in any way, shape, or form, man. I think you're conflating two issues.
Mohammed, before you continue, can you define for us what hate speech is, please?
Say it again.
Can you tell us what you think hate speech is? Because presumably there needs to be some understanding of what hate speech is, because if there isn't, anybody can claim hate speech about anything. So can you tell us what hate speech is? Because you feel this verse is not hate speech. So what is hate speech?
Basically, when your speech has threatening, abusive words, that's like it's prejudice against those who call a particular certain group of people.
What has this verse got? What has this verse got against everybody who's a non-Muslim?
Say that again.
What has this verse got against everybody who's a non-Muslim? Does it not have exactly what you have just defined as hate speech?
No, not necessarily. This verse is just talking about. First of all, this definition is confined within our society in this lifetime, isn't it? And this verse and this Quranic verse is talking about the Most High, His opinion on the disbelievers. And there's no way this is not threatening. It's not what's called abusive.
It's an eternal threat. What do you mean it's not threatening?
Well, I'm talking about the hereafter, though. I think we're conflating this life to the hereafter, man.
Well, I take this as hate speech. Why am I not entitled to take this as hate speech and you can take something else as hate speech?
You can consider anything as hate speech. It's up to you if you want to consider this hate speech.
There we go, because nobody can define hate speech, right? So anybody can consider it. So if you're going to claim hate speech, I can legitimately claim this verse, as Thunderous says, as hate speech as well. And you should, if you're an honest and consistent Muslim, you would have to grant me that I can call this hate speech. And if I can, then I can have this banned, just like you want some things that Tommy Robinson or whoever else says banned, right? Fair is fair.
I don't think this verse has any effect in your life. It's not going to affect your
but that's
health.
I don't care what you think it has an effect on, right? Because Tommy Robinson's words don't necessarily have an effect. If one person does something, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to do it. So the vast majority of what Tommy Robinson says does not have an effect on people's lives either, in this world or any other world.
But Tommy Robinson's words has an effect on people in this lifestyle, and with them words, people use them words and they have hatred between the two Muslims, and then they start killing them.
No, they don't. There's one lunatic who does something. That doesn't mean other people do anything. And what do we do when we have words that people disagree with? We have a conversation like we're doing right now.
And also,
yeah, we can agree to disagree.
Can I just interject there and say, well, Tommy Robinson has an influence, but that influence hasn't manifested itself through the killing of other innocent human beings, whereas the influence of Islam is Muslim on Muslim violence, Muslim on Sikh violence, Muslim on Hindu violence, Muslim on Jew violence, Muslim on Christian violence, Muslim on atheist violence. So, when you look at the figures, the figures are disproportionate. 40 human beings have died with non-Muslim on Muslim violence, and there's a great rhetoric and if you like, exposure of this via the media. Every day you know, from Mogadishu to Iran to the Middle East, to China, to India and Pakistan and such, we are seeing on a daily basis Muslim on Muslim and Muslim on non-Muslim violence. And that manifestation comes through the text of Islam. So it's difficult.
I don't believe Islam is anyway violent to any Hindu, Sikhs, or we're forbidden to be violent.
You've got a right to say that. You've got a right to say. But the interesting thing is, the common denominator is that when people do this violence, they're using the Quran to justify the violence. So, and that's
necessarily anyone can use a scripture to.
Yeah,
if I today use a scripture.
Yeah, anyone can use the scripture, but the interesting is, it is only Muslims that use this violence. It's only Muslims that use this scripture. They're using the same.
That's your prejudice kicking in there. That's your prejudice kicking in.
Well, that's just history.
That's your prejudice.
But that, okay.
Not necessarily. People use the Bible. People use the Bible, don't they?
What, to go kill people?
Yeah, people use the Bible to kill people.
Can you give examples?
The Crusaders.
So you
we're not going to the Bible now. We're not going to the Bible. Here's the point.
No, I'm not going back to the Bible, but I'm just looking at how desperate Muhammad is. He has to go back.
Because you said to me, people only solitarily use the Quranic verses to go and kill people, and I'm saying to you, you can use any scripture.
No, you can't, Muhammad. No, you can't. Stop there. Hang on a moment, Thunderous. I'm bringing something up on screen here, right? Have you heard of Jainism?
Jainism.
Have you heard of Jainism?
No.
Okay, it's a very ancient. It far exceeds Christianity and Islam, etc. It's one of the oldest religions. The number one tenet in Jainism, non-violence. So your claim that every religion can be used is not true. I'm bringing you over. Here it is. This is Jainism. Here it is on Wikipedia. And if we go down to the very first verse, this is a knockdown argument against this. No Jain can possibly do any violence and call himself a Jain. Here is the number one tenet. If the first verse in the Quran said something like this, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Non-violence is one's highest religious duty, the very first tenet of Jainism. So you're factually incorrect when you say that no religion can, you can grab violence from any religion. Here is one of the oldest religions, and you cannot do it. So this is a knockdown argument against that.
No, Rob, I'm not saying that, man. You're misconstruing what I said to you. I'm not saying you can use every scripture to commit violence. I'm saying to you, Islam is not the only religion.
Okay,
I appreciate you backtracking now, but that's not what you said.
That's exactly what I said.
No, you said every religion, you can find some verses in every religion to justify violence. And I've just presented you a religion where it's impossible to do that.
And also, when we look at it as well,
if I actually research, I might find some what's it called, violent in that religion.
You can't.
This violence is understood by African Muslims, Somalian Muslims. It's understood.
Guys, it doesn't matter. It does not matter whether another religion has texts which are violent. We're talking about Islam and the violence in Islam. It doesn't matter what others say.
Yeah,
this is Islam.
No, I'm talking. Please listen to me, Stops. I'm talking about whatever creed or color the Muslim is. If the Muslim comes from Africa, it is the same violence. If the Muslim is from the Middle East, it's the same violence. If the Muslim is from Pakistan, it's the same violence. So you can't just say that it's interpretation of scripture. We've got the same scripture interpreted in different languages, different tribes, different tongues, different continents, different locations, coming up with the same methods.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter what other texts say.
And an interpretation when the manifesto is violence. So if the manifesto is violence determined by different tribes, different peoples, different tongues on different continents, then the conclusion has to be drawn. Join the dots. The manifesto of Islam is violence. So if you're going to ban Tommy Robinson that does not incite violence, then you have to ban the Quran that does incite violence. Tommy Robinson can only incite violence in one language and in one tongue and on one continent. The Quran does it worldwide. Rant over.
Okay, good. Mute yourself for a moment and take a breather. Right. I think I've refuted you quite well, Mohammed, on your claim that all religion you can take violence from all religion. That was just a side note to show you you're factually incorrect. So please don't ever make that. This is live. Please don't ever make that claim again. Right. Now we can move on. This verse here, I can very plausibly take as hate speech, and you've got nothing to say. You at the end when I've talked through this with you, the end when you've got nothing else to say, your last comment was, well, we can agree to disagree. In other words, you've got nothing else to say here. If you haven't got a definition of hate speech that we can all agree on, and if it's so nebulous, And the words that you used, I think, perfectly fit this verse. So that's why every time you bring this stuff up about hate speech, it's very easy to dismantle it.
And Rob, the
I
fact
never bought the
that it
argument of hate speech.
mentions the afterlife, this is pathetic. I'm not reading it when I'm dead. I'm reading it now when I'm alive. And it affects my life today, not when I am dead.
Yeah. You see, that's the problem with you, man. You don't understand verses, innit? I think this is what's it called? Comprehension skills. Your comprehension skills are lacking it.
What do we miss? What are we
You're
not
saying to me this
comprehending?
verse is not about.
What are we not comprehending?
Why are you saying what are we? I'm talking about stop scamming it.
What is he not comprehending?
So he's saying it's about this lifetime. I'm saying to him this verse about the cursing,
No, Muhammad,
about the hereafter.
you're not listening to what he's
That's
saying.
not what I said. I said it affects me now when I'm alive. It does not affect me when I am dead.
No, it doesn't affect you. This verse is not perpetual in terms of its cursing. This cursing is gonna start when your soul departs from you.
You need to listen.
You're trying to say,
can you listen? I am saying,
listen, you
if
said to
I'm
me it's gonna affect
this,
you today.
I am reading this now that I am alive. I am not dead. I'm not reading this when I'm dead. I'm reading this now when I am alive. And therefore, this is affecting me today when I'm alive. It cannot affect me when I'm dead.
When the soul
That's a very poor reason, man.
when the soul leaves the body,
Of course, it's logical. You don't understand that.
That's a very poor reason, man. That's a very poor reason.
when the soul leaves the body, Muhammad, is the soul still conscious?
The soul is everlasting, so it's always conscious.
Okay, so the curse is on the person that's dead, but he's still alive. He's still conscious, so he is getting the curse from Allah and the curse from the angels while he's still alive. Then he's just in a different dimension. So the person isn't dead; they're just transmigrated to another dimension, getting cursed by God. Yeah. So they're not.
I told you. I said to you when the soul departs, so that's when the cursing starts.
Yeah. So they're still alive, getting the curse. Then they're just in another dimension, receiving it.
Yeah, they're alive when they get the cursing starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're alive.
That was my point, right? From so Stops is right, so Rob's is right, and I'm right. We've just agreed that you don't die; you just transmigrate to another dimension, getting cursed by God.
But the other point here is that you can only read this while you are alive. You can't read this while you're dead. Well, presumably you'd have access to the eternal book in heaven. But in order to understand this, you need to read it while you're alive, and that's what Stops was saying. And you didn't seem to understand that. Let's move on, otherwise we're never going to get any further here. So I can legitimately say, there you have it, folks. If you're watching this and anybody brings up this hate speech nonsense, just quote 2:161, and anybody who's a non-Muslim can legitimately claim that this is hate speech, and a Muslim, if he's going to be consistent and honest, would have to agree that this is hate speech, right? So there you go. There's a wonderful verse that you can respond to anybody who wants to claim limited speech, like Adnan Rashid and the rest of these people.
And it'll be one of many. So if you have a pen, make sure it's filled with ink, and you've got plenty of paper, because you'll be writing more hate speech down as we progress through this series of reading the Quran.
And we need to also pencil this in, because this is going to be a sentence which will be contradicted later on.
Okay, so there we have it. There's a prediction from Stops. Let's see if that's true. That could make him on the way. Stops. You also have to write a book. So you have to get.
Please call me prophet from now on.
If he's a prophet, am I a visionary? Because I know what verse to use.
Well, you both have to write a book first. You have to get followers. You have to confuse them, etc. And then only are you going to be a prophet.
I think if Stops and me wrote a book, we'd have to title the book. We both agreed to disagree.
Right, let's move on.
Almost everything, yes.
We're not going to move. We're not going to get anywhere. So 2:162. Abiding eternally therein, the punishment will not be lightened for them, nor will they be reprieved. Yusuf Ali. They will abide therein. Their penalty will not be lightened, nor will respite be their lot. So again, that seems to contradict what you said, which is like a one-off sort of curse. This seems to me to be saying that this will be eternally cursed. Apparently he's a charge of die. Maybe he'll come back. But again, so I don't know that this fellow has actually read the Quran, because the very next sentence appears to contradict what he said, which was that it's a one-off curse when you die.
Rob, he told you he's a Hafiz.
I didn't hear him say that.
Yes, like the Quran.
Well, there we go. So this is an eternal curse, and the punishment will not be lightened.
But this is hate speech as well. Then it follows on because it says that they will abide therein with chastisement. They will not be lightened. Or if I said, I'm going to write a manifesto and I want my followers to go burn people with a flamethrower, I'd be declared a madman. That would be hate speech if it's aimed at certain people that don't accept my doctrines and don't live the life course that I'm asking them to live. How is this any different? If we're going to talk about hate speech, and hate speech should be banned and should not be allowed, because of the offense that it causes, I am grossly offended by what I'm reading here.
And that's the problem, of course, with hate speech, because it's a subjective opinion that the person who chooses to feel insulted has or takes. Anybody can claim it. And I think, as we've quite rightly and straightforwardly pointed out, if we're going to go with this hate speech, these two verses are legitimately hate speech. And every one of us could use that as hate speech.
And look what it says there. They will abide therein, their chastisement, and we know where this location is. This is going to be the hellfire torment, will not be lightened. So it's going to be pretty much when you're in the oven at 180 degrees, he's not going to turn it down to 160 or 150. It's going to be 180 degrees. And nor will there be a respite, nor will a respite be their lot. So he's not going to turn it off for half hour so we can chill out for a minute, then he turns the oven back on again. This is pretty much constant torture. That's what he's saying here. I'm going to constantly torture you for rejecting me. This goes
but
out.
I'm merciful and I love you.
This is going out to the human being populace of the planet Earth today, and supported by 1.5 million human beings who adhere to the religion of Islam. They are in support of this verse by the implication of communal responsibility. If you're a Muslim listening to this show, you're in a full working agreement with what your Allah is saying here, that all your work friends, your colleagues, your school friends, anybody, the neighbors that you live on in the streets, the people that you see at the shopping center and such, they're going to be cursed, and you're in full agreement that this is what they deserve because they reject your God.
Except if you're a Sufi, right? Then everything's subjective, and this is just means something completely different.
And the irony is, if I, even though I am not Tommy Robinson, if I agree with Tommy Robinson, what do you think the punishment will be in the court of public opinion in the climate today, the political climate today? And yet a Muslim can declare himself a Muslim, and he has no choice but to be 100% in full agreement with what Allah is saying here. Yet he seems to be able to say that with impunity. Therein lies the problem.
Okay, so I think those two verses, there we go, guys. Burn this into your mind. You ever hear it from a Muslim? 2161 and 2162, I think.
Into my mind, I feel like going into the car park and burning the Quran.
Which should be a legitimate, free expression of freedom of expression. If you own a book, you're entitled to do whatever you want. Yeah, I personally wouldn't burn it unless I was dying of cold or something. I wanted to warm myself up, but other people are entitled to do with their property as long as they don't physically harm anybody else, right?
You can download a copy and burn me a copy if you like.
Download it, yeah.
And burn me a copy. Did you get it?
No? Yeah. Make a DVD in the good old days, for those that remember DVDs. All right, 2163. Sahih International. And your God is one God. There is no deity worthy of worship except him, the entirely merciful. There we go. The especially merciful. Yusuf Ali. And your Allah is one Allah. And there is no God but he, most gracious, most merciful.
Has your translations got Allah in brackets?
No, it hasn't. And if we look at the
my Yusuf Ali does. It's almost like your God in brackets Allah is one God brackets Allah. There is no God but he, the most gracious, most merciful. How desperate they are to make the name of God Allah. They're trying to give him a name, and the name is Allah. Because I think in Arabic parlance, before Muhammad, and even during the life course of Muhammad, the word Allah just meant the God. But now they're trying to, by hook or by crook or for a peculiar form of osmosis, trying to claim that the name of God is now Allah.
But have you heard of in Malaysia that the Christians are no longer allowed to use Allah as name or as God, as the word God in the Bible.
Yeah, because Arab Christians and that do actually use the word Allah. It just means God.
Yes. Yeah, in Egypt too. But in Malaysia now they're no longer allowed to do that. Copyright is the Islamic Copyright Act is now I don't know what would have they done, seized the word Allah.
Yeah, but if they're saying that Islam cannot be corrupted, that in itself is a corruption. And Malaysia seems to be the spearhead of this corruption then.
Listen, Muhammad Islam, stop this bullshit. Come on.
Come on the show.
You were factually refuted. It's not me being a foolish man. It is me who doesn't like your attitude. If you come here and you talk bullshit, that is the way you're going to be treated. Come here and have a real conversation, have a thoughtful conversation, have a discussion, and not this bullshit that you were pulling off here, okay? That doesn't work here. That doesn't fly here at all.
Right, let's move on to 164.
Makes me angry, people like that, really.
Psi International. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and the day, and the great ships will sail through the sea, with that which benefits people, and what Allah has sent down from the heavens of rain, giving life thereby to the earth after its lifelessness, and dispersing therein every kind of moving creature. And his directing of the winds and the clouds, control between the heaven and the earth, are signs for a people who use reason, use study. Behold, in the creations of the heavens and the earth, in the alternation of the day and the night, in the sailing of the ships through the ocean, for the profit of mankind, in the rain which Allah sends down from the skies, and the life which he gives therewith to an earth that is dead, in the beasts of all kinds that he scatters throughout the earth, in the change of the winds and the clouds which they trail like the slaves between the sky and the earth. Here indeed are signs for the people that are wise. So this is oftentimes what I hear Muslims saying to me about signs, because remember we had signs earlier on about, the natural signs. Look at the, magnificence of the natural signs.
But that's surprising that the Muslims will do that, because I thought the Muslims hated the Apostle Paul. I'm not trying to be apologetic here, and please not, but this is a plagiarism of earlier written texts.
Is this sort of along the lines of pointing towards Genesis then, is it?
No, it's pointing to Romans 1:20.
Oh, okay. Right.
So I've never heard that.
I'm not doing apologetic. What I'm saying is what Muhammad has done here is a plagiarism of something that's already been written previously. So he's taken something, he's reworded it, and he's stamped his own sort of like stamp of a seal of approval on it and made it his own.
Yeah, but Thunderous, I'm sorry, this is like really primitive. I mean, how can somebody say, well, we have day and night? Wow, this is a sign.
Of course. No, it's the latter points I'm looking at where it's a pure plagiarism.
Okay, because for me, this is like incredibly childish. I mean, if somebody were to say to me, everything that you see, look at the trees and the clouds, this proves that there is creation. This is how primitive this is. This is like totally childish for me.
Well, I think if you come from a perspective, if you come from a believer's perspective, they will see it all as a wondrous creation, right? So obviously
it's a
from
confirmation.
Your perspective,
you're right. It's a confirmation of what they have been taught, and people will say, you see, here in the book it says that heavens and earth were created, and isn't that wonderful? And there, look, and the effect of that is night and day, and look how useful this is. So this is this childish effect that you see the purpose.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you can say childish, but if you're in their position, this is all wondrous, right? I mean, obviously you can look at it from that side, but if you put yourself into their shoes, this obviously it's not childish. If Allah's created everything, then everything is a wondrous sign, right? So we can do an external critique, but if we do an internal critique, then it's not inconsistent, right? And in fact, if you or I were a believer, we wouldn't think it's childish, right? We'd think it's wondrous.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, absolutely. But what my point is that I am now taking ownership of even the most mundane things on the planet. That's what I'm saying. You can say the trees and the clouds, and you can take ownership of everything.
Yeah, but they're not mundane from a believer's point of view. They're all source of God, right? So what we consider as mundane, and of course I'll hear from Muslims often who will say, well, you can't even create I don't know, a seed or whatever it might be.
Fly,
yeah, you can't create it. So in that sense, it's not mundane. It's mundane in the sense that we see these things all the time. But let's say a Muslim comes along and they will go, no, this is wondrous. You humans can't do this. The problem for a Muslim comes in that if in fact we get to the point which seems very plausible, that we create AI and AI becomes self-aware and conscious and then can outperform us as many things do already. That's going to be a bit of a problem for a Muslim, right? Because if God creates us and we can create something better than ourselves, what does that say about the original creator? But I also want to welcome in Waiso, welcome. We're probably not going to be running that much longer. We're trying to keep it to around 2 hours unless we've got a Muslim on and we're going full at it. So welcome for the last few minutes. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. And it's upsetting. I had to stay over at work, and then I had to go pick up a guy I work with and take him get his car. I really want to talk to that Muhammad Islam, who makes claims that people are liars, and then comes on here and doesn't even understand the basic concept of you have to be alive to read a book. He does, and then he wants to call everybody else names. And I really wanted to get into his tafsirs, and stuff like that. But, maybe one day I can come on when he's actually here.
I'm posting the link for Jinn&Tonic. So if people want to go to the after show, which we'll go to shortly, then we'll see if Muhammad wants to join us on the after show and everybody can jump in there. So maybe there's still an opportunity. And if you're a Muslim, because none of this is going to be recorded. So if you want to join us shortly in an after show, I've posted the Discord link again. We already have Rational Review. I'm sitting there in the live voice chat where this is being streamed to at the moment. So is there anything else we want to say on this, or let's just do one more and finish it at 165. So 165, Sahih International. And yet among the people are those who take other than Allah as equals to him. They love them as they should love Allah. But those who believe are stronger in love for Allah. And if only they who have wronged would consider when they see punishment, they will be certain that all things belong to Allah and that Allah is severe in punishment. Yusuf Ali. Yet there are men who take for worship others besides Allah as equal with Allah. They love them as they should love Allah. But those of faith are overflowing in their love of Allah. If only the unrighteous could see, behold, they would see the penalty, and that to Allah belongs all power, and that Allah will strongly enforce the penalty.
What I find interesting about this, firstly, I mean, you can do it as you like, but I would suggest never read the parentheses or the brackets, because you're doing Islam a favor. Because if you read it without the brackets, it's saying that not only do these people who worship other gods believe in those gods, they also believe in Allah. They love them as they love Allah. Now, the reason they put in and that's the vocalization of it, right? That the actual saying of it, Muhammad messes up constantly. It's kind of how, like, last week we disputed about the remember me and I'll remember you, right? We're talking about a person who is trying to think of omnipresence, and he's trying to think of all these things that are beyond his grasp. And here, if you just take away brackets, and then you can see it from Yusuf Ali, right? He doesn't even use the brackets. He just puts it into the text itself as if the word is there in the Arabic when it's not. And the reason he's doing that is because they're noticing these little problems. And the way to fix these little problems is to give this concept that, well, Allah speaks in brackets. I didn't know that. I didn't know Allah speaks in parentheses. I mean, that sounds very human to me. Like somebody, like Allah said something and it was like, oh man, I need to make sure that they put brackets for this in the future. It makes no sense. But the big thing here is, if you read it without it, they love them, talking about other gods, as they love Allah. So Allah is admitting that if you worship other deities, or you love other deities, that you also love him. He's he can't stand the fact that you love other deities other than him at the same time.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Thunderous Stops, do you guys want to comment? And then we'll bring the show to a closer. Stops, just a hadith for the day, or I can actually find my
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. Do you guys want to add anything on this verse?
No, I think Wise has pretty much summed it up for me.
Stops, anything on your end?
I'm just putting the enter. This is the Sahih Muslim.
Oh, I was looking for the link to it in Quranics. Okay, cool. I'll see if I can find it.
That's
just so we can have it for future.
I'll put it into the chat as well. This is the reference.
Okay. Also, it says here, yet there are men who take for worship, okay, or yet there are men who take others besides Allah as equal. They love them as they should love Allah.
Just take, but that's the thing. The should is not there, right? That's the reason it's in brackets, or
Rob,
they
just
put
do
it
us
in
a favor.
parentheses.
Click on the second one. Look, click on the roots, just below. Yeah, there. Because there it's more clear. So this is actually the way that it's shown in the Quran, and this is the most clear one. Even though there are translation liberties here as well, but this is the best. And among the mankind who takes from besides Allah, and that's it. That's all you have. So what you need to do now is make some sense out of that. So you need to, besides Allah equals, okay? So now you know, and this is where the brackets come in.
And among the mankind who takes from besides Allah equals.
I mean, to me, it really comes down to one of my biggest arguments I've had about has a God spoken to humans is language is still evolving. We're still coming up with words to try to express emotions, definitions of universal concepts of sciences and etc. We're still coming up with these words, and yet God believed that 1400 years ago, we'll just use Islam, 1400 years ago, this triliteral language used by just a subsection of the world was well enough to convey his eternal presence for all mankind. To me, it's rather ridiculous.
But then again, we just don't have guidance according to our Muslim guests, right? We're just not reading this accurately. I think we're doing as good a job as we can. Now, if it takes scholarly input, then of course the Quran requires external help in order to understand it. And of course, this is mine and Thunderous, one of our biggest concerns. Well, I'm sure you guys as well, but it's certainly the case.
I think people have got to remember that when Muhammad was revealing these surahs, these ayahs, that he was the only person that could explain them, assuming that he understood what was being revealed to him in the first place. There's this perception that when Muhammad was getting a verse from Allah, let's follow the narrative through, he would receive it. It was as though he instinctively, intuitively understood what the verse meant. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. So he would be getting it fresh just as much as the audience were getting it fresh. So he'd be, if you like, disconnected from what the ayah meant just as much as the audience were, just as much as we are. It is Allah that says it's a book easily made easy to understand. We don't need the external sources for this, and the audience need to understand that all this literature that Muhammad was talking about, you have to have this book, this book, this book to understand what the verse means. They never had that in the first century of Islam, and yet they were the best believers, the purest.
Yeah,
and then
if I could interject real quick and just add to that.
Sure, go on.
The word scholar, just itself, like who is the first certified scholar, of Islam? You can't say it's Muhammad, because then you're saying that scholar and prophet are the same. And I've mentioned this to people. They use the word the Arabic word ummah, I believe ulma, if I'm not mistaken, is the word that they turned into scholar. But then when I mentioned, but it really means knowledge. Okay, that's what the real definition if you read the Quran. So, and then because it describes Allah that way. So you're saying that Allah is a scholar and he's a God? And that's what I was getting at with this concept of language being primitive. Now, even now, language isn't as primitive, but this in 50 years is going to be expounded upon even more. But back 1400 years ago, that was the perfect time to send this language. Go ahead, sir.
No, yeah, it's just that you know, they were the purest of Muslims in the first years, or you know, the growth of Islam, then the subsequent generation, then the generation after that. So they would have understood it in the purest possible way, and they didn't have all the external sources that we have today to understand Islam, which is why for those who are listening to the show, we are understanding it, reading it, and trying to make the best of what we've got in the same way Muhammad and his companions were doing in the first century of Islam as well.
But it's worse because it was never meant to be read. It was meant to be recited.
True.
Therefore, you couldn't really check on these things. These are stories which were handed down, you know, from parent to son. So the children would hear the stories, but they were not critical thinkers. They were not people. Yeah, but hang on, didn't he just say 6 days? He said 8 days before. They didn't have this possibility because it was recited. That's it.
And I totally get what you're saying, because if the other person who had the contradictory verse may not have been in the same neighborhood for them to get the contradicting verse.
Exactly. That's why they never noticed.
I get your point there, but I think I'm just trying to do a summary so that our audience can understand the perspective when we're doing the show, that we as critical thinkers have actually had the time to sit back and understand these things, and we analyze it. And so when we're reading these ayahs and from the Quran, we're reading it with the experience that we have of what the audience was like in the first century. We're not reading it through ignorance. We're actually reading it with the accuracy as a fly on the wall documentary, which is exactly the way that they got it in the first century of Islam.
Well, actually, you know, there's a hadith that I'm screen sharing right now that goes against this whole concept, right? They put so much on the Sahaba about the companions of Muhammad, but in reality, here you have this hadith right here where Muhammad tells his companions, "Verily, your blood, property, honor are sacred." And then it is incumbent upon those who are present to inform those who are absent, because those who are absent might comprehend better than the present audience. So in theory, I could actually understand Islam better than the companions. So this is something that I came across the other day, but Muslims would never want to use that type of hadith, you know what I mean, to support any concept of going against the grain of the Sahabas.
That's an interesting one. Okay, on that note, Stops, can you do us the hadith of the day to close the show, and then we'll move over to
it's on fever. Fever is caused by germs. Okay, this we know, but Muhammad didn't really know about that. This goes exactly where we were just now, because narrated, and this is quite interesting. This is Nazi, so it's not Nazi, it's a Nazi. So Nazi Abdullah bin Umar said, the Prophet said, fever is from the heat of hell. So put it out and cool it with water. And Nafi added, Abdullah used to say, oh Allah, relieve us from the punishment when he suffered from fever. So there you have it. So Muhammad didn't know that fever is caused by bacteria or something, but it's a spark from hell to punish humans.
And of course, his response to solve it is the age-old response, right? Which is you put something cold on somebody that's got a fever, right?
Yeah,
so there's nothing miraculous. I mean, that's almost like a truism, right? Do this because everybody's done this in the past.
Actually, it kind of shows how primitive Muhammad was, in the sense that there's a hadith also where he says that summer heat comes from hell, and he has no grasp about sun, he's such a geocentric concept that he thinks that all the sun does is cause people to become darker skinned. That's all and you can look at the Quran where it says that.
I was
Bukhari 771-619, 771-620, 771-621, and 771-622.
I was just going to go there because that when you made the reference to spark causing fever, I was going to ask, was that when hell takes a breath, or is that when hell exhales? Is that the only way the spark can ever come out? So you got there before me, you get.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing: Lucifer's throne is on the sea, but he's going to rule over hell, and also according. There's just we could get into contradictions of hadiths forever, but
Exactly.
one thing that I do think is interesting is how Muslims rarely will they say there are some they'll admit that they believe that Sahih hadiths are revelation. You have to blatantly ask him that, and then you can point to verses like inside the Quran where it says that nobody's gone to hell yet, right? There's nobody in hell, but then you point to the hadith that says that Muhammad has looked into hell and saw its inhabitants.
Yeah.
So you have, you ask them this, and they'll say, "Oh, it's just revelation. That's all it is."
All right, guys, let's continue this in the after show if we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much to everybody, all our panelists here, even to our Muslim fellow that joined us for a very short time and then left. Thank you to everybody. We'll be back again next week, Friday. I won't be here, unfortunately. I'm driving and working next Friday, so hopefully Stops and Thunderous and perhaps Wiso can run the show. I'm sure you're in very capable hands. With that said, I've just posted...
anyone who has too much work.
Sorry?
I don't feel sorry for anyone who has too much work.
I don't have too much, which is partly why I'll be doing this. So there, I've posted the Discord again. We'll be going into the after show. So if you want to join us, please click on that. With that, thank you to everybody, and we will see you again next Friday.